Today we're going to tackle a single problem that every single society on Earth has to solve. It doesn't matter if you're a tiny island nation or a global superpower. You have to face it. It's called the economic problem. And how a country chooses to answer it, well, that defines just about everything about that place. So what is this big universal challenge? Let's get into it.
You know, it all starts with a question that I'm sure every single one of us has asked, probably since we were kids. Why can't I have everything I want? Well, it turns out that simple, almost childish question isn't just a personal thing. It's the central problem that the entire field of economics was invented to solve.
And here's the brutally simple answer. As humans, our wants are pretty much unlimited. We always want more stuff, better services, cooler experiences. But, and this is the big but, the resources we need to make all that happen, things like land, labor, raw materials, even our own time, those are not unlimited. They're finite. And this clash, right here, between our infinite wants and our finite resources is the engine that drives all of economics.
This fundamental tension has a name: scarcity. And it's really important to get this. Scarcity isn't just about being poor. Even the richest countries in the world have to deal with it. I mean, think about it. If we had unlimited resources, we wouldn't even need economics. But because we don't, every society is forced to make choices. At its core, scarcity is the economic problem. So, this whole scarcity thing forces every society, no matter its politics, its culture, anything, to answer a set of 4 basic, unavoidable questions. And the way a society answers them defines its entire economic system.
All right, so what are these big 4 questions? First up, what stuff are we actually going to make? Second, how are we going to make it? Third, and this is a big one, who gets to have all the stuff we make? And finally, how do we plan for tomorrow so we can keep growing? Let's break each one down real quick.
That first question, what to produce, it's all about priorities. It's the classic guns versus butter dilemma. Do we use our steel, our factories, and our smartest engineers to make cool consumer gadgets? Or do we use those exact same resources to build military hardware? You just can't have unlimited amounts of both. So a choice has to be made.
Okay, next up, how do we actually make the stuff? Do we go with what economists call a labor-intensive approach, relying on a huge workforce? Or do we go capital-intensive, pouring money into expensive machinery and automation? The answer usually just comes down to what's cheaper and more available in that country, people or machines.
The third question, for whom to produce, is all about distribution. Once we've made everything, how do we slice up what you could call the national cake? Should everyone get an equal piece, or do the people who can pay more get a bigger slice? This question cuts right to the heart of debates about fairness and inequality.
And finally, how do we think about the future? See, a society could just consume everything it produces right now. But if it does that, it won't have anything left to invest, and it won't grow. So every society has to decide, how much do we enjoy today, and how much do we save and invest for tomorrow? That choice is what decides whether life gets better or worse for the next generation.
Okay, so those are the 4 huge questions. How do societies actually go about answering them? Well, let's dive into the first major approach, an economic system that relies on the power of the free market, known as capitalism.
So, in a capitalist system, think places like the US or the UK, the means of production, the factories, the land, the machines, are owned by private individuals, not the government. The whole system runs on 2 main ideas. You have the right to own your own property, and you have the freedom to chase your own self-interest, which usually means making a profit. Everything is guided by the choices of millions of separate people and businesses.
But wait, if no one person is in charge, how does anything get decided? Well, that's where something called the price mechanism comes in. It acts like a giant, global, invisible auction. The price of anything is just set by this dance between how much of it there is, that's supply, and how much people want it, that's demand. Where those 2 lines cross on the graph, that's the price. This invisible hand, as the famous economist Adam Smith called it, tells producers what to make and who gets it, all without a single person giving orders.
Now, people who are fans of this system will tell you it has some pretty big upsides. For one, it's self-regulating. It just kind of works on its own. The hunt for profit creates this powerful incentive for companies to be super efficient and to come up with new ideas. And all of that often leads to faster economic growth and, for us as consumers, a ton of choices.
But, and it's a big but, there's a huge potential problem called market failure. This happens when the market price of something doesn't tell the whole story about its true cost to society. Think about it like this. A factory might make a gadget for cheap. That's its private cost. But what if it's dumping pollution into the river to do it? Well, cleaning that up has a cost too. That's the social cost. That gap between the private cost and the true social cost can lead to really bad outcomes that the market just can't fix by itself.
So this whole problem of market failure leads us right into the second big answer, which is basically the total opposite. If the market can fail, what if we just replace it with a central plan? This is the core idea behind socialism. In a socialist or command economy, the community, and that usually means the government, owns all the major means of production. Instead of an invisible hand, you have a central planning authority making all the big decisions, what gets made, how it's made, and who gets it. The goal, at least on paper, is to maximize the well-being of the whole community, not just individual profit. The classic historical example here would be the former Soviet Union.
And I mean, the contrast between the two systems is just night and day. In a planned economy, the government is calling all the shots. In a market economy, it's individuals and companies. Who owns the resources? The state versus private citizens. And prices? They aren't set by supply and demand. They are literally decided by a planning committee. It's a fundamentally different way of answering those four basic questions.
Now, the arguments for a system like this usually center on social goals. You could, in theory, get a more equal distribution of income, more economic stability, maybe lower unemployment. And you can definitely mobilize the entire country's resources for a massive project really fast. But the historical downsides have been pretty severe. These systems often get bogged down in bureaucracy and become super inefficient. They can kill the incentive to innovate, and they almost always mean far fewer choices for consumers.
All right, so we've got the freewheeling market on one side and the rigid central plan on the other. You might be wondering, is there anything in between? And the answer is a big yes. This brings us to the third and honestly the most common answer in the world today, the mixed economy.
A mixed economy is pretty much what it sounds like. It's a hybrid, a mashup. It tries to get the best of both worlds. It uses the free market as an engine for efficiency and innovation, but it also has the government step in to correct those market failures we talked about, and to provide things the market might ignore, like public schools and national defense. And really, this is the key takeaway. Nearly every single country on Earth today is, to some extent, a mixed economy.
So what does that actually look like in practice? Well, you'll have a big chunk of the economy that's the private sector. Businesses trying to make a profit, just like in pure capitalism. But then you'll also have a public sector, run by the state, focused on social welfare. And often, you'll even see a combined sector where public and private groups team up on big projects. But trying to blend these two systems, man, it creates some really complex challenges. For instance, a government central bank might lower interest rates to encourage companies to borrow money and build new factories. Sounds good, right? But wait, those same low rates mean you and I earn less on our savings. So we might save less, which then shrinks the pool of money available for those companies to borrow in the first place. It is a constant, delicate balancing act. And that really gets to the heart of it all. There is no perfect system. Pure capitalism can be incredibly efficient, but it can also lead to huge inequality. Pure socialism aims for equality, but can crush efficiency and individual freedom. The mixed economy tries to walk that tightrope between them, but it's a constant struggle. In the end, choosing an economic system isn't about finding a perfect solution. It's about choosing which set of problems a society is willing to live with.
Which leaves us with one last massive question for the future. You see, the systems we've talked about were designed for the industrial age. But today, we're facing brand new challenges, things like artificial intelligence, climate change, and global pandemics. So the real question is, will these old models still work, or will the massive challenges of the 21st century force us to invent a brand new, fourth answer to that fundamental economic problem?